This is my favorite shot from The Batman. And with the Penguin coming out, I wanted to recreate it. But that means we need a Batmobile to flip a car, an empty lot, all this rain, a Batman costume, and a massive fire. So, how do we do it? We could film in a parking lot and cut some corners. This Batmobile could be a model, the fire filmed separately, and the rain. How would we get access to water in a parking lot? Or cover the whole parking lot? At that point, it may be easier to just use CGI. Wait, I don't know how to do CGI. So I guess that leaves me with just one option. A miniature. But where do we start? Well, first, we'll want to rotate this shot right side up since that's how we're going to film it. Then, let's break it down into parts. This can just easily be a model. Or kid's toy. The bigger, the better. And this will give us a starting place for the scale of everything else. It may seem easiest to just shoot on real asphalt, but with a miniature car, the texture is too big, so we need miniature asphalt. And we thought black sandpaper would be perfect since we can test different grit sizes to get the perfect texture. We'll just need to come back on a different day to cover the whole surface. The window is easy. It's a silhouette, so we can just make it out of cardboard and stick it in front of the camera. But this reveals a big issue with filming miniatures. Compared to the original, our window is way more out of focus. The closer the camera is to what you're shooting, the more shallow the depth of field. Fortunately, we can get a deep depth of field by closing the aperture. But unfortunately, that darkens the shot, so we'll need more light. Just like the asphalt, the rain falling from the sky needs to be miniature, so we're using a handheld water sprayer to get smaller drops. But how the water looked when it landed, water drops on the car. Water drops would never be this big on a full-sized car. And it was much worse on the sandpaper. Yeah, that's not working either. I should have asked this question sooner. Is miniature rain even possible? From all my research on miniatures, I keep seeing and hearing. Avoid water. Avoid fire. Our shot has both. But why should they be avoided? Essentially, they both look completely different on a small scale than they do on a large scale. For water, that's due to something called cohesion. In other words, water has a tendency to stick to itself. Perhaps you've seen this example. You add water drops to a penny to create a sort of bubble of water. It stays together due to cohesion, and it looks quite similar to what we saw in the car. No matter how small we make the water drops falling from the sky, they will combine on surfaces and create larger and larger drops of water, which are unrealistically large on this miniature scale. For fire, it's more just how fire is. If you light a candle, you get a small flame. If you light a small piece of paper on fire, you get a few larger flames. But a large fire is made up of many large flames, creating a ton of detail you don't get with a smaller fire. And since water and fire are quite unique, there really aren't any small-scale substitutes. So we kinda have to use them. At this point, you're probably wondering why I haven't even mentioned how we get Batman in the shot. Arguably the most important part of it. And, well, I've been keeping something from you. Something this shot wouldn't be possible without. See, I knew from the start that some of these things wouldn't work with just a miniature alone. So I had a plan all along. And I think it's finally time for me to tell you about compositing. Compositing is taking multiple different elements or shots and combining them to make one final image. Probably the most well-known example is using green screen to put yourself in a new location. Two separate shots, but one final image. For this shot, it'll be easiest to think of this in layers, starting with the miniature. Despite the issues with water, I actually think including rain in the miniature will work. with a few small changes, like using a mist, soaking the sandpaper, and filming it all in slow-mo. That alone won't fix everything though, but compositing will. We'll film separate takes when everything is dry, with rain falling from the sky, and with water splashing on the ground, all combined to create one clean shot. All we have left is to build the miniature before we have this part complete. The next layer is the fire. This one we'll film separately and then composite it into the miniature. But in order to composite it, we need to separate the fire from the rest of the shot. Since fire is light, adding a dark background will create that separation, which we can use in post to cut out the fire and add it to the miniature. But since fire is light, we need to light the miniature like there's a fire there, then cover it up. And of course we'll need a much larger fire. Finally, the Batman, which will need to be a full-scale person. Like I said before, green screen is a common way to do exactly this, but my green screen isn't very large, and the Batman is walking. But it's just about separation. Opposite to the fire, the Batman is a dark silhouette, so a white background will give us the separation we need. We'll mask around the edges, color grade to match the scene, and this will work. I'll just need to start putting a costume together. But all this starts with nailing the miniature, and I was struggling to match the lighting. At this point, I don't know what else to do, and we're out of time, so we have to figure it out when we shoot it. Man. I did not wait until we shot it to figure it out. Let's try this again. I spent some time studying the original. Looking at the behind the scenes of the Batman told me very little, other than that the fire is the main light in the scene. So figuring out this lighting for the fire is the key. I turned my attention towards fake fires done in other movies, and realized that one aperture MC wasn't enough. I needed to match the size of the fire and cast that light in all directions. And this time, I'd have to set it up all alone. This was a much better start. Next was some ambience from the streetlights, and a streetlight from above lighting the foreground area. There's a lot of atmosphere to this scene, so we'll haze up the whole room. But there's even more smoke just around the fire. I had this smoke genie sent out to me a while back, which will allow me to get a much more controlled smoke, specifically near the fire. I also added a light behind the smoke to illuminate it better. The atmosphere is what really pulls the shot together. And adding in the fake rain confirms that this miniature is complete. I think we're finally ready to shoot. Three separate shoots.
Striking.
A miniature. A fire. And the Batman. All to create one final shot.
Lightning. Press this button, get some on the fire.
The costume may not be perfect, but it'll work in silhouette.
Let's spray more towards the front here.
I wasn't leaving anything to chance. The miniature is most of the shot, so we did a test.
Okay.
I took that test and compared ours against the original. Again, and again,
There we go.
and again, until we finally had our matching shot. Our first take of the fire was promptly snuffed out. What makes this fire so hard is that we need it on a flat surface like in the original. So we had to scale things up. This is very dangerous, and so we have water and we have a fire extinguisher. We're not taking any chances. Getting a flapping cape is much harder than you would think. It takes a lot of airflow to get this movement. We tried a shot from Dune earlier this year involving a cape, and it took a $500 fan rental and a lot of luck with the weather to make it work. No wind this time, no $500 fan. We had to somehow make this work with a small fan. There was water everywhere. I'm getting soaked. Our fire was catching, and it was getting big.
Stay in frame, come on.
I couldn't be any help while in the costume. I had to rely on my team to pull this off. And with every take, we got closer.
Whoa, that looks so cool. I gotta move quick.
We had to keep drying the set off every take.
I need a different lens. This is kind of our last little push here.
Let's do one more. It took a lot of time.
There! That looks like the original.
Oh my goodness.
But we finally got the shot.
That's the shot. That's it right there.
All that's left is to put it all together. And of course, we can't forget the final step. I'm really proud of this one. Subscribe for more videos like this.